What's good, everybody? I'm Johnny Danger.
I'm Jesse Wheeler.
And we are
the Dangerous Dudes.
It's been a long time, but we've come out of hibernation to discuss something very important to us, very near and dear to our heart, and that is the top 10 albums of the 1990s.
The top 10.
It's the definitive top 10. This isn't the Rolling Stone top 10 or some other.
This is the list to end all lists.
That's right.
So look no further than this list.
We can save you a lot of time and effort searching the internet for a better list than this. You're not going to find one. That being said, this was not an easy task whatsoever.
Many worthy records to make a top 10 list. We could have easily done a top 50, but we don't have time for that.
No, and we're not going to rank them. We had our lists generated individually before we met here today. And I thought that there would be quite a few similar albums on your list as there would be on mine. There were
6 or 7 in common.
Yeah, we kind of come from the same generation. So we are both guitar players. So the majority of albums on this list are from guitar-based bands. It is what it is. Anybody in the comment section that yells at us for not including Ray of Light by Madonna from 1998, it's an awesome album. Sorry, it's not on this list.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into the list of the top 10, we wanted to at least go over a couple of records that were special to each of us that we consider our honorable mention list. First one for me is OK Computer by Radiohead. One of our qualifying factors to make the top 10 list was it needs to be the band's best record. And OK Computer is a fantastic record.
It is.
But it is not the best Radiohead album.
It is not.
And I know we'll probably get a lot of flack for that. It's the album that started their left turn from pop, guitar-based rock to something much more special than that. And Radiohead is one of, I think, each of our favorite bands. So that's why I call that OK Computer on the honorable mention list. And Radiohead's best records were yet to come outside of the 90s.
Agreed. For my honorable mention list, not easy to say, it is definitely Maybe by Oasis. There's Supersonic, Rock and Roll Star, Cigarettes and Alcohol. But we got to compromise. I reluctantly took that off my top 10 list. It was a great album. It was post grunge, came out in 1994. Started that whole Brit pop sort of shoegazing phenomenon. And cool sounds, great songs, but just outside of my top 10.
The next honorable mention for me is The Downward Spiral by 9 Inch Nails. A fantastic record, but just didn't quite make the top 10. It does have some outstanding songs. Another requirement to make the top 10 is every song on the record's got to be a banger. Everything's got to be great. And The Downward Spiral has a couple of songs that are just not in the great category for me. So
Agreed.
It's a great record, a special album, but not quite in the top 10.
Agreed. And so I guess now is a good time to segue into what is the top 10. And I'd like to start with one that we felt deserved to be in there. Not a guitar-based album. I don't know if there is a guitar on the album, but it was such a huge record. And as a white boy living in suburban upstate New York, I felt like I had a little piece of gangster and LA sort of badass in me when I listened to this record. It's The Chronic by Dr. Dre. It's really good.
Fantastic record. All the songs are great. For me, I had been really very much into hip hop in the 80s, was beginning to segue away from that being a main, one of my main listening preferences. But that album came out and you're like, okay, this is real. Dr. Dre's a real guy. Like, this is a good record. And Snoop Dogg was on the record. It just was like, The videos were awesome. It just was probably still considered one of the defining hip hop records in the entire arc of hip hop from start to finish.
I would think, yes.
Certainly the best hip hop record from the 90s.
The sound, like the way that they captured vintage samples with modern beats at the time, modern, but it still had like an analog feel to it, very warm hooks and like memorable lines, a lot of which we can't say for the sake of PC or whatever. You don't want to get canceled right off the bat. But I remember just like some of the lyrics and just like the overall vibe and the feel of that record. Again, not knowing shit about hip hop or being some sort of, pretending to be some sort of authority on a genre that I'm not. That album is special and deserves to be in the top 10. And so confidently welcoming The Chronic by Dr. Dre on our top 10.
So when we were coming up with the top 10 list, we essentially agreed on 7 or 8 of them were on both of our individual lists. So one of the things we decided to do is we'll allow each other one that we, each agree is worthy, as kind of like a pet pick. Is, we get to pick it and override the other one. But my pet pick was Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. At the time that this record came out, it was obviously highly anticipated. They had made their first record, Gish, produced by Butch Vig, who ended up doing Nevermind by Nirvana, which I loved that record. I thought it was unbelievable. And so there was all this fervor built up for the next record. It took them a while to make. And when it finally dropped, it did not disappoint. It is an epic record. No songs on this album miss. It's got the beautiful ballads, Luna and Soma, but then it's got the rockers, Cherub Rock, Silver F, Geek USA. It's just a banger from start to finish. So my pick for top 10, Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins.
So to piggyback off that, my pet pick for a top 10 is The Southern Harmony and Musical Companion by the Black Crowes, their second album. This is one of those records that I wore out. I actually had to buy a new copy because I listened to it so often that I ruined the cassette. This is back in the cassette days. Start to finish, it opens with Sting Me, and it closes with an acoustic jam. Time will tell. Yeah. But they recorded this album in a couple weeks' time. It's mostly all live in the studio, warts and all. There's no frills, no fuss. It's just a rock band at their absolute peak, just banging out rock and roll the way it's meant to be. Just quick and dirty and to the point. The songs are outstanding. Sometimes Salvation, their lead single Remedy, Thorn in My Pride, Bad Luck, Blue Eyes, Goodbye, my personal favorite, No Speak, No Slave. An absolute masterpiece rock and roll record. If you haven't listened to it in a while and all you're familiar with Black Crowes is hard to handle, do yourself a favor. Check out The Southern Harmony and Musical Companion by the Black Crowes. My pet pick for the top 10 albums of the 90s.
Next on the list is Ritual de lo Habitual by Jane's Addiction. This is an epic record, obviously consumed best as an album as a whole, listened from start to finish. It's like an amusement park ride or even like a movie. You get to the two, starts with Stop, which is a great song. But once you get to 3 Days and Then She Did, which are epic songs, these are epics. Like that's the definition of an epic, like 10-minute plus songs. These are like Stairway to Heavens of modern rock. It's just unbelievable. I remember when the record came out, I had loved Nothing Shocking. This record was special for me. I actually did a paper in college on this record because this was at the time of the First Amendment challenges in music, the labeling records.
Because the artwork,
and the original artwork was a Perry Farrell painting, or I actually think it might have been his girlfriend's painting, with showed nudity.
But you see it now,
big
and it's
whoop.
like, really,
Yeah,
that's
like that got Tipper
controversial
Gore and all our
cover?
buddies like fired up. And so
Yeah.
then Jane's Addiction's response was to just print a white paper, the First Amendment, which is such a classic response and makes this record, it makes it more than just about the music. This was a statement. It became a stance against censorship. And on top of it, obviously, just a great album.
Correct. 3 days, for the longest time, if somebody asked me, what's your favorite song of all time, or what's your, the most impressive song you've ever heard, 3 days is right in that mix for me. There's something about it. That song alone, and I know we've kind of set the bar for these albums to be ones that don't have any bad songs on them, but I would almost make an exception if the rest of the songs in this album sucked and it only had 3 days. So it's like 3 days and the rest of it was just garbage. I'd still have to put it in consideration. That song is so effing great. And it's like, it's 9 minutes and change, but you get to the end of it and it's like, it's like going on an amusement ride and like, you're ready to do it again. Like, yeah, I puked on that first turn, but like, I want to do it again. Right, it was worth it. It's so good. I was heavily into Nothing Shocking, the album that preceded Ritual. And in 1990, I don't want to date myself, but I was very young. And I just remember being just throttled by the scope and the massiveness of that record. And they just perfectly tied together the weirdness of alt music with the hugeness of arena rock, and just sort of, peacocking and being a rock star, but at the same time, you can be creative and a little introverted and weird. They made all of it okay.
They definitely bridged the gap from arena rock to alt rock. And kind of like they were short-lived. Obviously, they got back together and did records later on, but you just had that snapshot of them, and it ended for a long time. This was their last record. It was just like this epic thing that kind of left you wanting for more. But what an amazing story that would have been had this band existed for this short period of time and then went out with like the bang of all bangs with that record, because
the bang of all bangs.
We're
trademarking.
Yeah, we just did.
That's ours.
So trademark. We said all you got to do is say it.
Trademark.
Gene Simmons. Did it. Yeah. Anyways, Ritual Day Habitual, Jane's Addiction, definitely a top 10 record of the 90s.
Firmly in the top 10.
The next on our list is Achtung Baby by U2. I was beginning to become a U2 fan when this album came out. I had Joshua Tree. I had listened to some of the earlier stuff. I liked them, but did not love them. But I got Achtung Baby when it came out and immediately knew, okay, this band is remaking themselves. From the very beginning, Zoo Station, it's like, this feels different. It was just like heavier, and
dark,
and just had this grunge, not grunge. I shouldn't use the word grunge, but like the guitars were like edgier. That's funny.
Yeah.
Pun intended. The guitars were just edgier. But then you get into the songs, and still one of my favorite guitar solos of all time is in The Fly, which I think is the best song on the record, though
you would be correct.
Right. But a lot of people, pick, Even Better Than the Real Thing. One obviously is just which, by the way, there's a funny clip of us performing one with added expletives that you want to check out. It's out there on
Facebook, I think.
Yeah, it's fun to make that song an X-rated version. But
fucking Gary. All right.
anyways,
Yeah.
That album from start to finish, people just sleep on the content from start to finish. It's not just the radio hits.
The lyrics on "Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild
That's
Horses,"
another song.
"You're a piece of glass left out on the beach." The lyrics, the song construction, the production, but just the feel of that album all the way through. Like you said, the second you heard the opening line of Zoo Station, you're like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, this is different.
Like, this isn't like "Where the Streets Have No Name" or "With or Without You." Like, this is really, really different, and they capture this vibe and this feeling that runs straight through the whole album. What's the Mysterious Ways?
Oh yeah,
that was a huge.
That was a big hit too. Yeah,
an incredible song, and the video is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Bono super leans into this messianic rock star pose, and these days he's derided and like kind of chastised, for being, the Pope of pop and whatever. But don't forget, like, before they started making adult contemporary songs that you listen to, at the grocery store, they were making amazing albums like The Unforgettable Fire and The Joshua Tree. But this one is just different. It's a masterpiece. It's a statement. It's like a work of art. And there's something about the warmth of, like you were saying, like it's edgier. It's just, it's very sophisticated.
This is U2, who is one of the biggest bands in the world still. This is them at their pinnacle. We were fortunate enough to see them live much later, which is an experience in of itself. I can't imagine anything else quite like that from a live music perspective. But from a recorded music perspective, this is them at their pinnacle. It's the best record that U2 ever made, and clearly worthy of top 10.
Correct.